goals of 2030. Instead of progressing, the world has regressed, and you need to drive climate action because the Earth may survive, but we as human beings will become extinct if we are not able to achieve 1.5 degrees centigrade. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let me, out of the very many priorities which the G20 has, let me touch upon just two of them which are critical to my mind, one of which is about digital transformation and its ability to drive many of these things based on our ability to drive digital transformation. Now, if you look around the past 2.5 decades, much of the transformation around the world has happened because of innovation led by many of the innovators in the western part of the world, that is Google, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, and they have driven innovation across data, across mobile operating systems, across cloud. They, along with the Chinese companies, two of the Chinese companies, Tencent and Alibaba, have been owners of data. India, most innovations across the world have happened from the developed part of the world. But India has built up a very powerful alternative model, which is about digital public goods and digital public infrastructure. So India created the railway tracks, the tracks on the top of which the private sector is innovated. India built up identity for almost 1.4 billion people. It ensured that between 2014 and 2017, we were able to create 470 million new bank accounts. All of them were then linked to Aadhaar and to the mobile. India has about close to 1 billion smartphones today. So therefore, the bank accounts are both linked to your digital identity, which is both the Aadhaar and the mobile telephone. And many of us have used our mobiles. Almost all of us in India today have not used our debit or credit card for the last 3.5 years. I have not been to an ATM machine. I've just used my mobile as my bank to do all my digital transactions. And therefore, India does about 11x more digital fast payments than what United States of America or Europe does. It does 4x more payments than what China does. So, ladies and gentlemen, from the digital payments, which is one part of the story, that is identification, bank accounts, and then linking them up to the unified payment interface, which enabled digital payments to take place. The second layer was that using this, many of our young startups, that is Lending Card, Pine Labs, many of them, actually use the payment history to do cashless, totally cashless and paperless credit. All of this is cashless, paperless credit. And then on top of that, you had many young startups who become unicorn, like Grow, Upstock, Zerodha. And imagine one young startup like Zerodha holding, today handling about 22% of our stock market is a young unicorn. And they were all able to do wealth management on the basis of the fact that they do cashless, paperless wealth management across India using the payment history of every individual. And then from wealth management, we had another set of young startups like Digit and Acco who started doing insurance. When I started my career and I wanted to buy an insurance policy, it used to take me 3 to 4 months of paperwork. But in India today, everybody gets an insurance policy using Digit or Acco in less than 5 minutes. So what we've seen is identity, bank accounts, mobiles being used for payment, then credit, then wealth management, and on top of that, insurance policies all being issued in less than 5 minutes. When I was a young officer, I was working with traditional fishermen in Kerala. The challenge for me was to transform the lives of traditional fishermen. We were able to give them new outboard motors, which enabled them to go much further into the sea, get higher catches. We were able to give them new fishing nets, which were then known as disco nets. We gave them new fiber crafts, which was fiberglass crafts, so that they could do good catches. And they got good catches. But the challenge was that fishermen were prone to drinking, and therefore it was very necessary to open bank accounts for them. I used to chase physical bank managers. It used to take me 5 to 6 months of chasing and know your customers to open a bank account. Today in India, we open a bank account using a biometric in less than a month, and that is the huge transitional story of India. Ladies and gentlemen, what India has achieved through digital public goods, and on top of that, allowing private sector to innovate. And therefore, India is the only country in the world where PhonePe competes with Google Pay, Paytm competes with WhatsApp and beats them in the marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a completely different story from what the big tech model of the United States is. It's a very different story from the GDPR model of the Europe, where they laid emphasis on privacy, but at a cost of innovation. What India has driven is both privacy through the data empowerment protection architecture, and that is, the data is owned by the citizen. He gives consent to enable many of these things to happen. And therefore, this transitional story is really the story of tech innovation for the world and for the future of the world. And that is the way it'll go. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the transition which India has made. In 3 to 4 years' time, using technology, it has pole vaulted in a manner which nowhere else in the world has happened. The second big story, to my mind, is that it'll be impossible for the world to grow, expand, and progress without going digital and without going green. And therefore, the second big story of India is its story and its ambition to be the first country in the world to industrialize without carbonizing. India is not responsible for carbonizing the world. If you look at 1.5 degrees centigrade, if you were to look at the total carbon space available, it's 2,400 gigatons. India accounts for just about 52 gigatons, which is about 1.4%, whereas logically on a per capita income basis, it should be entitled to about 17.5% of the carbon space available. But irrespective of that, India is committed to a very rapid green transition. It is the first and the only country amongst G20 country in the world which achieved its NDC targets, which it made its Paris 9 years ahead of schedule. We've achieved almost 40% of our renewables, of our electricity consumption through renewables in 2021, whereas we should have achieved it by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, India's renewables have gone through a process of very transparent competitive bidding.